Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted to be joined by Paul Kelly. This is the big fight breakdown for the big unification fight at super bantamweight between the champion Stephen Fulton and the challenger Naoya Inoue, taking place in Japan on the 25th of July. Paul, looking forward to this one. Big fans of both fighters at this channel. It's a big fight, two undefeated fighters. Really looking forward to getting both of our teeth stuck into this one. How are you? How are you feeling about talking about this fight?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm looking forward to this fight. It is a cracking fight. I think 2023 has served up some absolute barnstormers already. The likes of Lopez, Taylor. Obviously, we had Davis against Ryan Garcia. We had Chantel Cameron and Katie Taylor, and we've got Crawford and Spence. Maybe Wilder, Joshua at the end of the year, all things like that. So yeah, and this just adds to the list of incredible fights in 2023 for me.
Yeah, it's look, obviously no British fighters involved now, so interested to see the attention this fight gets from maybe casual boxing fans in this country. However, those who know their boxing know this is a fantastic fight. Obviously, both fighters are undefeated. We know what Inoue's about. We know what he did at bantamweight. This is his first fight at super bantamweight, whereas Fulton, undefeated as well. As we said, holds the WBC and WBO titles at that weight, and yeah, has beaten some good names along the way, including Brandon Figueroa. But he's kind of a genuine world champion. He's could be called an elite fighter himself. And yeah, no, it's a fantastic fight, and yeah, it's really not too far away now. 25th of July is only a couple of weeks away now. First question I've got for you, Paul. As you mentioned, this is Inoue's first fight at super bantamweight. Do you think he should be fighting Fulton first, or do you think it would be wiser for him to have a easier touch at the weight before going after Fulton?
I think it's a really interesting question, Elliot. I mean, kudos to Inoue. He's clearly just like, yeah, stuff this. I don't need a warm up. I'm going straight in to fight the best fighter in the division. And you know what? I take my hat off to him at that. You look at Inoue's career to date, and he showed that he's fought at this level before, numerous times. I mean, I probably expected him to have a warm up. To be quite honest with you, at super bantamweight, I did expect him to have a warm up. I know it's only £4, but £4 down at those weights is a lot. Is a lot when you're talking about the lower weight divisions. So I actually did expect him to have a warm up fight, but yeah, massive credit to him for not taking a warm up fight and going straight in there with the number one in the division. And you know what, fair play to him. I can't fault him at all.
Yeah, like I think maybe it would have been ideal to go at him to have an easier touch. At the same time, Inoue, when you're an elite fighter, one of the best in the world, and he's 30 now, not a young fighter anymore. I just don't think there's that much interest in you taking like an easier touch against someone who's not as well known. You can't have those breaks when you get to that level, unfortunately. But it's just one of those. Yeah, so it's just one of those things. Gonna go right into the next question, Paul. Is Stephen Fulton Inoue's toughest fight? We've gone over some of Inoue's opponents in the past. Donaire, Jason Maloney, obviously fought Donaire twice. Manuel Rodriguez, fought good fighters in the past. Hasn't ever, I think, arguably that first fight against Donaire has been his toughest fight. But yeah, I'm interested to see, is this his toughest test as a pro? He's 24-0 now, so 24 fights. Yeah, is this his toughest test?
For me, without a shadow of a doubt, this is his toughest test. Stephen Fulton is exceptional. He really is. I remember a few years ago, people were, I think Stephen Fulton was kind of a well-kept secret until maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And then he burst onto the scene, but it was known in boxing circles how good he was. I remember Carl Frampton saying that he had him for sparring and couldn't believe how good he was. So this was when Frampton was coming to the end of his career. And I remember him saying that, yeah, this guy is phenomenal. And I have to agree. I think that this is without a shadow of a doubt Inoue's toughest test, especially given the fact that it's up at super bantam now. Obviously, Inoue did start his career at light fly. So this is what 100. That was 108 pounds. We're up to full stone at 122 now. he's obviously, I mean, Fulton's not huge, but he's still a good inch and a half, 2 inches bigger than Inoue. Undefeated himself, incredible boxing IQ, skills. You mentioned that at the start, Elliot, that he beaten the likes of Brandon Figueroa. Like, you look at Brandon Figueroa now, who's gone up to featherweight. And for me, and for a lot of people, is probably, despite not being a champion, is widely regarded as the best featherweight on the planet, even though he's only just moved up there and had one or two fights. So beating him is a massive statement. And you look at, as you mentioned, those fighters he's beaten in a way. Obviously, your Daenerys twice, Rodriguez, Maloney, Butler, Jimmy, another Brit, Jimmy McDonald back in the day. Do you know what I mean? They're all credible fighters, and Inoue beat them all with relative ease, really. He is a frightening puncher, Inoue, for me, but I think long story cut short, I think Fulton, yeah, it's definitely his toughest test, and as Fulton has proved that he is a world level operator and is the best in the division. So for me, yeah, kudos to Inoue, and this is a cracking fight, one I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you. And I think if I had to criticize, it's not a criticism of Inoue. I just think maybe sometimes the fights haven't been there. He's not got that like highlight reel of names in his resume. He's kind of given us some devastating knockouts, been in some good fights, but if you compare him to the likes of other kind of pound for pound stars, whether it be Canelo, whether it be Usyk, he doesn't have kind of name after name after name of elite fighters like those guys do. Again, it's not a criticism of him. I'm not saying kind of ducked anyone or anything like that. It's just he does not have that. He doesn't have that list of names yet. But I think Stephen Fulton will be the best opponent he's faced, and if he beats him, will be kind of obviously be the best win on his record. Keys to victory, Paul. It's again Inoue's kind of it's a tough question to ask. See what Inoue looks like at the weigh-in. Inoue is 5'5", has a reach of 67.5 inches. Stephen Fulton 5'6.5", a reach of 17.5 inches. So Fulton, bit taller, bit larger reach, but there's not a massive difference in terms of height there as well. As I mentioned earlier, Inoue is now 30. Stephen Fulton will be 29 by the time the fight happens. So again, not a big difference in age. Fulton 20-0, Inoue 24-0. So in some ways, these fights are quite similar. In some ways, there's not a lot to pick between them in certain ways. How do you think each fighter can win here in a nutshell? What do you think the game plan might be for each fighter?
Yeah, it's really intriguing. I think, as you mentioned, we'll find out closer to the time and like how they look, on the scales and stuff. But I think starting with Inoue, the challenger, I think we've seen he's a devastating puncher. He's finished all but three opponents. Finished all but three fights. But for me, I think because I know there's not a massive disparity in height and reach, but Inoue he'll need to attack the body very well here. I think that when you're fighting a taller fighter, you kind of need to target the body. We've seen that before with loads and loads of fights. And anytime Canelo's fought anyone bigger than him, he's targeted the body well, and break, like for example the Rocky Fielding fight, he saw vulnerability to the body because he was fighting someone who was a lot bigger. I think that Inoue will need to get on the inside, close the distance, and get the Fulton that way, which I think he is capable of doing. For Fulton, I actually think it's more without giving away my prediction and stuff, but I think it's more difficult for Fulton to execute a game plan against Inoue just because of the punching power. However, we did see Fulton last time against Figueroa. I mean, Figueroa was huge, a lot bigger than Fulton was, and Fulton boxed incredibly. I think he's going to be very wary of Inoue's power, so I think he's going to need to stay out of harm's way, not necessarily box on the back foot and skirt around the outside of the ring for 12 rounds. But I think for Stephen Fulton, for me, the only way I see him winning this fight is via decision. So in that case, I think that he'll need to box, move, be on his toes, like we saw with Tyson Fury against Klitschko all those years ago. Kind of something like that. Lighting his feet, moving in and out, and just not keeping still, moving his head, not letting Inoue get in close, closing the distance and landing his big shots. So yeah, it's really interesting. I think it'll be a good stylistic matchup as well, and yeah, hopefully it makes for a great fight.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I just think we've not seen Inoue at that weight yet. We've not seen either fighter lose, so there's not there's not just when you've not seen someone lose, there's nothing. It's maybe just difficult to see them lose and see how they would lose if that makes sense. But we'll see. We'll see. It's another point I would make is it's 4 pounds of difference, and maybe Inoue had outgrown the bantamweight division anyway, so maybe this is a natural step up for him rather than kind of a forced step up. What would you make of that statement?
Yeah, I think that is fair. And given and he beaten everyone at bantamweight, there wasn't really much point in him staying there. So it is a natural progression. Like, these fighters, they just want to win as many world titles in as many weight divisions as possible until they maybe bite off a little more than they can chew. Like, I couldn't ever see going up to featherweight, or could we? And it depends how he does against Stephen Fulton. But yeah, it probably was a natural progression. 4 pounds obviously doesn't seem a lot. Like especially when you're talking up the weights when it's half a stone difference for the majority of the weight divisions, but 4 pounds for someone who's only 8.5 stone, less than 9 stone, is a lot more.
Yeah,
However, I don't think it'll be Inouye's going to get dwarfed or anything like that. Fulton, I expect to be a lot bigger on the night and will probably weigh a lot more than Inoue, but I think it was a natural step for Inoue.
yeah. No, look. I'm looking forward to even more now after kind of unwrapping this with you, Paul. It's just there's so many things to look at, and like one thing I would say is he's a fantastic fighter, but I think you'll get some people who will just sleep on Fulton a bit and write him off without maybe knowing too much about him, without kind of giving him the respect he deserves. Saying that, interested to see your prediction. I'm not saying you're writing anyone off, but I've got my prediction. I'm going to ask for your prediction first.
Yeah, it's really difficult, like when to find a definitive prediction. And don't get me wrong, my mind could change between now and fight night. But I'm gonna go with my gut, and my gut is telling me that Stephen Fulton's going to win this fight. I got a lot of stick for saying Ram Burnett would have beaten Inoue. I'm gonna probably get a lot of stick for saying that Stephen Fulton is going to win. The only way I see him winning is on points, and given that it's in Japan and stuff, I think he'll need to win almost 8-9 rounds to get the decision. But I think Stephen Fulton's capable of doing that. I think he's a quality fighter, an elite fighter. And yeah, I want to put my neck on the line and say Fulton decision here.
Fair enough. Just having like this is not a betting show. Is having a brief look at odds earlier today, and Stephen Fulton, as things stand, 9-4 to win and 7-2 to win on points. So we'll come on to that in another video maybe, but those are the odds we are looking at the moment. It's a really tricky one to predict, I think, because we're kind of going into the unknown with Inoue. And I think for me, it's that big question of how does he look at the new weight, or should he have stayed at bantamweight? I think it's a tricky one, but I just think Inoue, one thing we didn't touch on too much in this video is the fact that Inoue, he does have freakish power. He's won nearly all of his fights by stoppage. So I think Inoue will get to Fulton. So I'm going for Inoue by stoppage. I'll go the mid, like round 7 to 9. That's that sort of period is when I kind of see the stoppage happening. But it's a very interesting fight because it's Inoue's first fight at super bantamweight, and as we've said, it is probably his toughest test as a pro. So those two things mixed together could be really tough. But really looking forward to this, Paul. Good to have a disagreement on the channel as always. We'll do more videos on this. Though, please look at the rest of our content for this. We'll have a betting show. We'll be reacting to the weigh-in. We'll be reacting to the fight night immediately after the final bell goes on 25th of July, if there is a final bell. Paul, thank you for joining me. Anything else you want to say about Stephen Fulton versus Naoya Inoue ahead of July 25th?
No, not really. Apart from just echoing what I said at the beginning of the video, I think we're having 2023 has been a year where we've had some incredible fights already. There's potentially some massive fights still before the end of the year, and yeah, this goes right in there as one of the best fights we've seen in recent memory. And yeah, do you know what? I just hope the fight lives up to expectation.
Great, Paul. Thank you very much for your time. I will speak to you again soon.
Cheers, mate. All the best.